Alright, let me stress this right out the gate, ladies and gents. If you came here expecting me to just straight dump on She-Hulk relentlessly, or get some anti-woke, anti-feminist crap shoved down your gullet, you're going to be sorely disappointed. I have zero qualms with She-Hulk on principle, or any show that chooses to put the difficulties that modern women face in the spotlight of the story. Their challenges are legitimate, real, and valid, and deserve a voice in story and the MCU as much as any other narrative. And I love a good character and story arc, hence the name of this channel, and I appreciate a good female lead character just as much as a male protagonist. Heck, many of my own films and in-development scripts have female protagonists. But I do have a few gripes with the show, and I want to address them as fairly as I can. As of this recording, I've seen 6 out of 9 episodes, the most recent of which was a self-described, self-contained wedding episode. By the time I upload this, episode 7 may have already come and gone. We'll see. And the final few episodes of any show can drastically change how its season or entire run is perceived in hindsight. And just ask Game of Thrones. There is a lot to love in She-Hulk. First and foremost, the casting is excellent.
About that, it's true.
Tatiana Maslany is an incredible talent and brings a wonderful fluidity to her performance. And Josh Segarra as Pug is another standout casting choice I wouldn't have expected.
Yeah, I'm Pug. I'm also in the Superhuman Law Division. I made you guys a welcome basket.
If you told me a few years ago that Adrian Chase from Arrow would be making me laugh out loud as a shoe-obsessed paralegal, or is he a lawyer? I'm not super clear on what he does there, honestly.
Be a lawyer? It looks cool.
I would have been skeptical, but he's delightful, just like Tatiana. We're also getting a very different ground-level feel for the way the world has changed in the MCU since the Infinity Saga and the Snap. And then the other Snap. And then the other Snap. There were 3 snaps, right? Yeah. It's a bit slapstick and silly, but we're getting to see the influx of weird, superpowered people from the perspective of normal people, lawyers, and a lawyer-turned-reluctant and untrained superhero. It's fun, particularly meeting unusual characters like Mr. Immortal, who we probably otherwise would never have seen on screen. And obviously there are also a ton of other fun cameos. Mark Ruffalo brings his lovable charm as the Smart Hulk.
Spandex. Spandex is your best friend.
And Tim Roth absolutely chews up the scenery when he's around. And we've still got some fun ones to look forward to as well, like the long-awaited return of Charlie Cox's Daredevil, and whatever version of Frogman we're going to get, which I'm personally weirdly excited for. And then Wong, of course, is always a scene stealer.
Very well. We'll reserve sorcery for strategy B.
And that's actually where things start to go a little wrong for me. Because while the cameos are definitely a strong suit for the show, they also present a problem. Because Wong and Abomination and Daredevil are such well-known, established, beloved, and long-missing characters, well, long-missing for Abomination, anytime they are on screen or hinted at, the show feels a little less like it's about She-Hulk herself. Especially when you consider that this is only a 30-minute episode comedy that needs to also fill the role of an origin story. She-Hulk / Jennifer Walters isn't incredibly well known to the general public like the MCU heroes who have come before with their own in-depth origin films, or like Spider-Man and Batman who get to skip the meat of their introductory stories because everyone already knows them by heart. Because of the runtime and cameos and the constant need to live up to being a full-fledged comedy instead of just occasionally quippy like most MCU films and shows before it, for good or ill, She-Hulk suffers and struggles to give dispassionate and unfamiliar audiences any real time to experience She-Hulk's personality, her emotional journey, and her struggles. Nothing gets any time to really breathe, and the writers are forced to rely on exposition and expository conversations between characters, and most notably, the fourth wall breaks in order to keep viewers up to speed with what Jen is feeling and thinking.
About that, it's true.
And that leads us to what I think is the single biggest thing not working the way Marvel, the writers, and optimistic fans like myself hoped it would. The fourth wall break. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love a good fourth wall break, and She-Hulk needs to break the fourth wall. She was doing it in the comics long before Deadpool, and it's a defining characteristic for her. And I don't think literally every fourth wall break in the show is bad. Whether or not the individual fourth wall breaks and jokes are bad on their own isn't even really the issue. Because some of them do work really well, and some are just interesting, Most notably, the one where Hulk seemingly notices that Jen is breaking the fourth wall, or kind of hears her doing it.
If you want to go back to your life as a lawyer, I respect that.
He doesn't mean that.
Despite no one else blinking an eye. I mean, to me, that was interesting. So, Jonathan, what's your problem with the fourth wall break then? You might be asking. And that's a great question. And it took me 6 episodes to figure out what this nagging feeling in my mind was really about. And I think it's this. The fourth wall breaking doesn't feel like a character trait born out of meta-awareness, or even quite like private thoughts being turned toward us, or toward God, like in Fleabag. I think the best way I can explain the problem is through comparison. Take, for example, the Merc with a Mouth, the most popular fourth wall breaker of the modern era, Deadpool.
Oh, hello.
In Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool movies, Wade Wilson is constantly aware of the fourth wall. His meta-knowledge is omnipresent in the film and woven into his very personality and every behavior.
3, Thor 411, X-Men Unlimited.
He isn't limited to turning to the camera and giving us exposition or a quick wink wink nudge nudge inside joke. Instead, he makes constant references to the real world, pop culture, and his own status within it, even to the people around him. Meanwhile, in She-Hulk, it's almost like there's a switch that needs to be flipped to put Jen into fourth wall mode. She'll go from having no clue in the narrative who Wong is, to then telling us all about Wong, Abomination, and every other cameo coming along the way, insisting that the show is about her, not them. Now, I don't think She-Hulk could or should have been saying things to the people around her that seem outright insane or prophetic like Deadpool does. It doesn't really make sense for her and for the MCU.
Superhero landing.
Like when Nikki first tells her about Wong, I don't think she should have said, "Oh, Wong, I loved it when he did karaoke in Shang-Chi." But the same constant meta-knowledge could be done in subtle ways, like having her catch herself before saying something like that, or harmless throwaway lines within the natural flow of the plot and dialogue that stand out as insight to us, but to the characters around her just seem like a random, quirky thing to say. For example, when she first saw the Abomination transform, she could have said something like, "The ears are new, didn't have those before," or just simply, "Huh, ears." But my main concern here is not that we lose out on fun meta moments with the way the fourth wall breaks are currently structured in the show. Instead, it's the fact that the expository nature of them, combined with the stressors already on the show's character building, and how many of these fourth wall breaks explicitly mention the perceptions around the show itself. Things like the Twitter armor fourth wall break, for example, makes it feel like She-Hulk isn't the one breaking the fourth wall. She's not just a character doing what that character does. Instead, it feels sometimes like the writers flipping a switch to talk to us directly and bypass the character. And look, I get it. This show was always going to have a hard time. Preemptively writing into the script your acknowledgement as the writers of how a show's inevitable haters will respond is clever, when done very, very sparingly. And don't get me wrong, there are some haters out there that these writers were rightly aware of. Combined with the fact that the fourth wall breaks mostly don't feel like anything inherently tied to Jen as a character and within her world, it just makes the whole device fall a little flat, and the show feels a little defensive at its core. But that's just what I think anyway. And again, I want to reiterate that I do enjoy the show, and I hope that Tatiana and She-Hulk get to show up again and again in the future of the MCU. I'm otherwise loving the characters, the new look at the world and world building, and the potential effect that this could have on the MCU going forward. I'd love to see what's going to happen when She-Hulk meets these other Avengers, not just limited to Wong.
Have you ever heard of a Kumite?
And I'm 100% going to be watching the show all the way through to the finale, not just because Daredevil is going to pop up. And also not just because of Frogman. I just really hope Feige and the She-Hulk writers, who I think are otherwise doing an incredible job with this premise, see what I did there? I hope they take a hard look at how they are handling fourth wall breaks, and to a lesser extent, the meshing of genres and cameos, so we get a more cohesive, detailed, and intimate view into the life and mind of Jennifer Walters going forward. But that's just my take. What do you guys think? Are you enjoying She-Hulk? Do you think I've got a fair assessment here, or do you think the fourth wall breaks are doing the trick exactly as they are? I'd love to see your opinions and thoughts in the comments down below. In the meantime, if you'd like to talk more about the future of the MCU in Phase 4 and beyond, click over here to see my video all about what I hope to get out of Werewolf by Night when it comes soon, because I'm very excited and hopeful for that. Or if you'd like to get some darker superhero essays, check out this video about Billy Butcher and the future of the boys right over here. Either way, thanks as always for watching, Film Friends. Jonathan's gonna go take a nap now. I don't know why I'm talking about myself in the third person. This whole thing was a fourth wall break.